I was disappointed by Strange New Worlds' return to a classic Star Trek planet after 58 years. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2 revisited a classic planet from Star Trek, the original series, but the return was ultimately disappointing. Following the adventures of Captain Christopher Pike Anson-Mount and his USS Enterprise crew, Strange New Worlds has delivered many solid hits and very few misses in its 2 seasons so far. Captain Pike was originally going to be Star Trek's first leading man, but the network rejected Star Trek's original pilot, The Cage. The main story of Star Trek's The Cage focuses on Captain Pike's trip to Talos 4, where he and the Starship Enterprise crew encounter the powerful, telepathic Talosians. Early in the episode, Pike mentions a mission on Rigel 7 that ended badly. He blames himself for the deaths of 3 Enterprise crew members, including his yeoman, and the injuries of 7 others. The Cage only offers a brief glimpse of Rigel 7 via an illusion the Talosians show Pike, but Star Trek Strange New Worlds revisited the planet decades later. Why Star Trek Strange New Worlds' return to Rigel 7 was disappointing? In Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 4, Among the Lotus Eaters, Captain Pike's Enterprise returns to Rigel 7 after scans show a Starfleet insignia on the planet. Pike soon learns that his yeoman, Zach Ongwain David Wynn, survived and declared himself ruler. Because of radiation emitted by asteroids orbiting Rigel 7, everyone on the planet's surface loses their memories each day. Ongwain and his guards remain inside a castle-like structure that protects them from this effect. Pike eventually loses his memories as well, but he retains enough of himself to continue his search for answers. While I enjoyed seeing Strange New Worlds revisit a planet mentioned in The Cage, Among the Lotus Eaters wasn't a particularly strong episode. There was nothing glaringly bad about the story, but it all left me wanting more. I didn't need to see Pike forget his memories to understand how much he cares about his crew and Captain Marie Battelle Melanie Scrofano. Plus, Pike's burst of anger at Zach doesn't really match up with his character, nor does his assertion that Rigel 7 shows you who you really are. Nothing else in Strange New Worlds has indicated that Pike is holding on to that much anger. Between a crossover with Star Trek, Lower Decks, and Star Trek's first musical, Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2 was full of strong episodes. Unfortunately, Among the Lotus Eaters simply doesn't live up to the season's other stories, and this is especially glaring when there are only 10 episodes per season. Aside from the reveal that Zach survived, which isn't explored very deeply, Among the Lotus Eaters doesn't tell us anything we don't already know. Star Trek's best stories reveal something about the characters while also tackling a moral dilemma, but Among the Lotus Eaters falls short in both areas. Most previous Star Trek shows delivered over 20 episodes per season, giving the writers more room to experiment and allowing for filler episodes. With only 10 episodes per season, Strange New Worlds doesn't have that luxury. An episode like Among the Lotus Eaters wouldn't be so disappointing if there were 19 other episodes to make up for it, but when there are only 9, well, I can't help wishing for something better. I would love for Strange New Worlds to have longer seasons, but with only 10 episodes, every story needs to deliver. There's something almost sacred about returning to a place you haven't seen in decades. Nostalgia sets expectations sky high, especially when that place is a Star Trek planet first introduced 58 years ago. When Strange New Worlds announced it was revisiting the iconic world of Talos 4, the mind-bending, illusion-driven planet from The Cage, the original pilot of Star Trek, I braced myself for something special. What we got instead was a glossy, half-baked echo of the original's haunting brilliance. It's not that the episode was bad in the conventional sense. It was well shot with strong performances and boasted the kind of production values classic Trek could only dream of. But that was exactly the problem. Strange New Worlds gave Talos 4 a facelift and forgot what made it matter in the first place. Back in 1965, The Cage introduced us to Talos 4 as a place of seductive danger. The Talosians, with their enlarged craniums and emotionless stares, had mastered illusion to the point of existential threat. They were tragic jailers, not villains, beings who had destroyed their own world and now sought to trap others in fantasy. That kind of cerebral storytelling, combining mystery with philosophical weight, was quintessential early Trek. It wasn't about the spectacle, it was about the ideas. Fast forward 58 years, and Strange New Worlds revisits Talos 4 with all the subtlety of a fireworks show. Gone is the eerie stillness, the unsettling silence punctuated by psychic whispers. Instead, we're treated to fast-paced action, witty banter, and high-definition visuals that drown out the very atmosphere that once made Talos 4 feel alien. Even the Talosians themselves are different, less cryptic, more chatty, and somehow less other. One of the greatest crimes of this return, however, is how it flattens the moral ambiguity that once made the Talosians so compelling. In the cage, their intentions were murky, their methods questionable, their tragedy palpable. In Strange New Worlds, they're repackaged as misunderstood empaths, victims of circumstance who just want to help. That's not just revisionist, it's reductive. It strips them of their narrative complexity, and more importantly, it sanitizes the ethical questions they once posed. Is a beautiful illusion better than an ugly reality? Are we truly free if our happiness is manufactured? And let's talk about Captain Pike. In the cage, Pike's internal conflict about duty, trauma, and desire was central to the story's emotional core. His resistance to the Talosians wasn't just physical, it was philosophical. In Strange New Worlds, that conflict is watered down to a few wistful lines and longing glances. The emotional gravity of returning to the planet that offered him a permanent dream is barely explored. That's a missed opportunity, especially considering how Pike's future, trapped in a damaged body, destined for Talos 4, remains one of Trek's most poignant fates. Even the episode's structure undermines the return. Instead of giving Talos 4 the narrative room to breathe, the story rushes through its themes, eager to check boxes and move on. There's no time for the slow dread that once defined the planet, no patience for philosophical depth. The writers seemed more interested in Easter eggs than in existential questions. And yes, we all love a good callback, but nostalgia without purpose is just pandering. I don't blame the creative team entirely. Strange New Worlds has been a strong show overall, doing what Star Trek does best, exploring new worlds, wrestling with morality, and giving us compelling characters. But in this case, the weight of legacy crushed the execution. Revisiting Talos 4 should have been a moment of reverence, not reinvention. The planet deserved more than a visual update and a shallow subplot. Part of the magic of Star Trek is its ability to evolve while respecting its roots. Deep Space Nine redefined the franchise's scope. Voyager tested its resilience. Picard explored aging and regret. Each series brought something new while acknowledging the past. But Strange New Worlds stumbled by trying to modernize a story that was already timeless. Talos 4 didn't need brighter lights or better CGI. It needed silence. It needed mystery. It needed to ask the hard questions and trust the audience to wrestle with the answers. Instead, we got a sleek package with little substance, a tribute that forgot why the original mattered. As a lifelong fan, I didn't want a carbon copy of The Cage. I wanted a spiritual sequel, a story that honored the eerie wonder of Talos 4 while adding new dimensions to its legacy. Instead, I left the episode feeling like I'd visited a familiar place and found it turned into a tourist trap. The bones were there, but the soul was missing. And old,